Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the YouTube community. How are you guys doing? My name's Katana, and boy, is it good to be back. I've had a lot of stuff going on with school, and just a lot of stuff in general. I'm back in theater business, and so got the musical going on. A lot of things happening in my life right now, but of course, YouTube has gotta go down. So what I've got for you guys right now is actually something a little different than what I normally do. I've been getting into the Blizzard games a lot, actually. I've been back into World of Warcraft. I got myself level 90 warrior and a level 90 pally who I use the Insta 90, who is insanely underleveled and undergeared. Not underleveled. I suppose he's 90. Anywho, I've also been getting into Hearthstone, and this is a very, very fun card-based game. For those of you who don't know, it was developed by Blizzard. Basically, each person has a deck of 30 cards. You can make any card you want, and there's a ton of them in the game. And I'm going to showcase a deck that I have, which is pretty generic. It's called Handlock, for those of you who don't know. It's based off the Warlock class, hence the lock. But let's go ahead and take a look at it. And if you guys don't exactly know what Hearthstone is and how the dynamics work, I will sooner or later be uploading a video on how Hearthstone works in general, and go in little depth about the arena sort of stuff. Card advantage and tempo and whatnot. But today I'm just going to simply be talking about the deck that I have right in front of you right now, which is the Handlock. This deck mainly focuses on accruing a very high card base in your hand, so you have a lot of cards in your hand, right? And there are cards in this deck that takes advantage of that, namely the Twilight Drake, which has a battle cry, which means as soon as it's played, it does the battle cry, and that is gain +1 health for each card in your hand. So what I can do with this is once I have 10 cards is the limit that you can have in your hand. So I can have maybe 10 cards. I have a Twilight Drake. Well, once I play the Twilight Drake, there's 9 cards in my hand, so +1 health for each 9 cards makes it a 4-10. And once you actually see the gameplay, for those of you who haven't seen it, you'll understand more about the basics. But that's really the first card that takes advantage of this. The second one is the Mountain Giant. The mana cost actually makes it unplayable. You go up to 10 mana to play something. And it costs 1 less for each other card in your hand. So against most matchups, I will always keep a Twilight Drake or a Mountain Giant if I have them in my opening hand. And again, you'll see more of this later. So I have really, really high health minions, and I generally concede the early game to have a really, really good late game. So that is essentially the base of this deck. There are certain cards to really take advantage of this and solidify my position, those being Defender of Argus and Sun Fury Protector. These two will taunt the Twilight Drake and the Mountain Giant or any other minion that I have on the board, and they will force the enemy minions to attack them, and they can't just attack my hero, which is really nice, and it means that I have very favorable trades most of the time. Let's see here. That's really the first avenue of play that I can take with this deck. The second avenue, a lot of decks actually don't do. There's a good amount they do. Excuse me, but that is the Ancient Watcher play. Ancient Watcher is a 2-mana 4/5 that can't do anything at all. It's just sitting there. So to the normal person, they would think, well, if 4/5 really doesn't matter if it can't do anything. Well, there's a couple activators for that. An activator being something that actually makes it useful. The first of which is things I've already mentioned, the Taunters, Sun Fury Protector, and Defender of Argus. That forces the enemy to attack the Ancient Watcher, or deal with it in some manner, if they have minions on the board. The other route that I could take is the Ironbeak Owls that I have in my deck. They silence a minion, and so silence basically gets rid of any text that it has, any battle cry. I suppose battle cries would have already been played, but any text like can't attack. For example, if an Ironbeak Owl silenced a Twilight Drake, it does get rid of battle cries in a sense because this would become a 4/1. But I can silence my Ancient Watchers, which makes them 4/5s that I can play. If I'm going second, I can play an Ancient Watcher on turn 1 and then silence on turn 2, and I've got a 4/5 and a 2/1 on turn 2, which is really great. Those are the really two avenues I can take. This is more early game oriented, and this style will almost always be played in the late game. Some other cards that are really key, not necessarily key, but really help this deck out is, first of which is Big Game Hunter. This allows me to pretty much get rid of any big threat that an enemy deck has. For example, I recently played a match against a Freeze Mage. The Freeze Mage used Alexstrasza, and I was able to big game Hunter the Alexstrasza. While, you know, a decent amount of damage was dealt to the Battlecry, I believe I was actually playing Ramp Druid during that game, so I could healing touch myself afterwards. It's still, this really does, it's a huge tempo swing, and it's really, really nice. My deck is a little different in terms of legendaries than other decks, mainly because I simply don't have the legendaries that I would really like. The first of which that really stands out is my Exna. I find my Exna actually to be pretty nice in Handlock because it sort of works in the same game, or in the same way as Big Game Hunter, except my Exna has to just be on the board, and it can be any minion that she destroys, so long as it doesn't have Immune or Divine Shield. So I think my Exna is okay. This is really sort of a cheap deck. The second of which is Black Knight. This really isn't necessary, but I happen to have a Black Knight from a card pack drop, and Black Knight's just a really good tempo card. And it works really well against warriors and druids, druids mainly being the most important against. And there are a decent amount of ramp and token druids out there, which is really nice for Black Knight. Ysera is really slow. This is probably the slowest legendary in the game, but it does help with card advantage. And Ysera is just a really, really good card. Some other legendaries you might consider is Ragnaros. Ragnaros really fits in any deck, maybe besides Zoo. And the other of which would probably be Leroy Jenkins. However, Leroy Jenkins is going to be nerfed in late September to cost 5 mana. And Leroy Jenkins does have some synergy with Shadow Flame, which the card text says it destroys a friendly minion, and it does that damage to all enemy minions, which is really nice for board clear. Although it does have synergy with that, Leroy Jenkins, while a nice finisher, is not necessary. Another thing that you could run in this deck is Faceless Manipulator. That has synergy with Leroy Jenkins, but that is obviously your choice. I also have some Azure Drakes in here, which is really nice for spell damage. Works in conjunction with Hellfire, nice board clear, and Shadow Flame. I also have one Siphon Soul. I believe one Siphon Soul is absolutely necessary to any Handlock deck. You have to have at least one, just a completely, just solid, instant destruction of minions. Molten Giant's the other giant in this deck. This allows me... It has synergy with the Warlock's hero ability, which is to 2 mana, draw a card, and take 2 damage to your hero. And so once I get lower and lower and lower, I can eventually play Molten Giants for free if I'm 10 health or under, and then I can combo that with a Sun Fury or a Twilight Drake. The enemy's facing 2 8/8s that are taunted, and a 2/3, and there's nothing really do about that. And as long as I'm under 10 mana, that's 2 mana, 2 8/8s with taunts, which is really nice. And so that's pretty much the premise of the deck. Just if I do happen to have this Ancient Watcher combo, I can play that early game. If not, Ancient Watcher is a good tempo play, especially comboed with Ironbeak Owl or Sun Fury Protector. And then once I get into the late game, that's really where this deck takes off, and I am able to absolutely demolish anybody in the late game generally. I will probably have a pretty hard time with late game warriors, but that can be foreseen in the future. But this is the deck, guys. I'm not really that high of or low of a rank, kind of depending on how you look at the ranking system. But I'm going to be going against some other opponents in ranked, and I will see you guys in a little bit.
Gul'dan!
Alright, guys.
Throw!
So we've got a match against a shaman here.
Doomhammer, your soul shall be mine.
Okay, so we've got the Ancient Watcher and a Defender of Argus, which is really nice. I would prefer to have the Sun Fury Protector due to mana, which means I could play the combo on turn 3. Because of that, I'm actually not sure I'm going to keep Ancient Watcher. This is actually something interesting that I haven't contemplated before. If I do mulligan, which is to get rid of, as you can see, I can replace any card I want. If I do mulligan all of these and I do end up with the Twilight Drake, it's going to really pay off. But if not, I don't know. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep the Ancient Watchers just as a threat I can play on turn 2. And if I get a Taunter, then so be it. But if I do end up with a Twilight Drake or a Mountain Giant, that'd be really nice. So we'll see what we get. Soulfire and a Mountain Giant. Okay, so Mountain Giants In Twilight Drakes, you really want to be the second player because there's more. You just start out with more cards, which means more health for your Twilight Drake, and the shorter time you can take to play Mountain Giant. So we'll see what he does. This is turn 1. Yep, Shamans really don't have much of a play on turn 1. Because I don't have an activator for this Ancient Watcher, the play is more than likely going to be ramp up to this Mountain Giant, so I'm going to go ahead and tap. Oh, well, there's a Molten Giant, so nice to have. I would prefer to have a Taunter at this point. But our hand is looking okay. Nerubian Egg, an interesting Nox card. Oh, if you notice, I'm actually not running any Noxramas cards right now. Since I did draw into the Ironbeak Owl, that is one very good component of my Ancient Watcher play. And the looks of it, I'm not really going to have the time. I can't play the Mountain Giant on next turn at all.
So many possibilities.
I could. Technically, I could. So the question is, do I want the Ancient Watcher? Do I want the faster player, or do I want the Mountain Giant? Likelihood is he's holding a Hex. And so if I could bait that out with an Ancient Watcher, that would be really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Turns out the correct play last turn was to play the Ancient Watcher, but because I did not have any of that, I didn't have a Taunter or an Owl, turns out, yeah, what can you do, right?
We must cleanse the Sunwell.
Okay, so he buffs the egg. Interesting. So he did that so that he could play the, so that he could, you know, attack with the egg, and then it could spawn the 4/4. Now the question is it worth it to silence the egg, or should I silence the Watcher? If I silence the Watcher, I'm going to hit the 3/2. But then the Owl could die to the 1/3, and it's left with the 1/1 that spawns a 4/4, which I could deal with Soulfire, so that's not that huge of a deal. I could Ironbeak Owl, silence the Watcher, Watcher hits 1/3, and then I Soulfire. There isn't... If I drop a Mountain Giant, or a Molten Giant, or Ysera even, that would be very bad. But then theoretically, the Ironbeak Owl would trade with the 3/2, which is nice. In any case, I need to tap first, because I would rather have another card that I don't get rid of.
I wonder.
Because Hellfire is not right here. Yes. Okay, Azure Drake, so I'm going to go ahead and Ironbeak Owl, silence, hit, Soulfire. This is a little unorthodox. Oh, I dropped the Mountain Giant, that's huge. Okay, alright. So it's not that big of a deal, we can still tap, we have both Twilight Drakes in here. Azure Drake might be played next turn. But overall, I've got a 4/4 and a 2/1 against a 3/2. So, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Maybe not the strongest play I could have made. I could have just straight out silenced the egg and waited on a Taunter. If I had a Taunter, I definitely would have done that. I just don't. And if I tapped into one, I would have done it as well. But, c'est la vie, nothing you can do.
I wonder.
Interesting to see what he does here. He does have card advantage on me, but I can definitely get that back faster. Alright, so he gets a 0/2 Taunt Totem, which prevents... it doesn't really prevent me from the 2/1 going into the 3/2. I could hit the 0/2 with my 4/4. Pointing out Feral Spirits, perhaps? Lightning Storm. Wow. Okay. Alright. Well, turns out things weren't that bad in the end. I'm going to go ahead and Azure Drake. I believe that is the correct play here. I get an Ironbeak Owl. Okay, so I have the second Ancient Watcher Owl combo. Unfortunately, I can't really play that on one turn, because unfortunately Ancient Watchers do not have charge. Let's see. Still got a Molten Giant sitting in my hand. And I definitely have 1 Mountain Giant and 2 Twilight Drakes left. These are very... Okay, well there's my Mountain Giant. That could be my play. It honestly could be. What I do know is that the Azure Drake is going into the 0-2. Now the question is, in my mind, I have 3 options. Azure Drake, Ancient Watcher, or Mountain Giant. If I Drake or Giant, I cannot tap. If I Ancient Watcher, I could tap with it, and Ironbeak Owlet, perhaps? Or I could wait to Owlet. It would be awkward.
So many possibilities.
Mountain Giant is the most mana efficient play. It is weak to Hex. And I honestly have not been taking good care of his cards, although I don't... He will have 7 cards next turn. And seeing as how he's got 21 left, the likelihood that he has a Hex it's pretty likely, but I'm okay with it. Playing an 8-8 can be scary. And if he doesn't have a Hex, then that is amazing. Turns out he did. Okay. 1 Hex down. I have 2 more Giants left. Yes. Okay. I believe now is the turn for Azure Drake. That is a lot of spell damage. And let's go ahead and pop down our Ancient Watcher. Let's get rid of the spell damage totem. Just as a general tip against shamans, spell damage totems are really, really nasty. You always want to get rid of them. If you can, of course. One thing I really am missing right now is my taunters. I need those. I need them. Okay. Lightning Bolt takes out my Azure Drake, which is pretty bad in terms of tempo. What I can do is I can attack the Azure Drake 4-4 into 2-3, which is the Harvest Golem. I can Mortal Coil what's left. That would get rid of the Harvest Golem. I can silence the Ancient Watcher and attack the Azure Drake, which leaves me with 5 mana, which means I can tap. So regardless, I'm going to tap this turn. Black Knight. Okay. Well, if Alakir pops out, I'll be one happy son of a gun. Yeah, I think that's the play. I honestly think it is. Let's go ahead and do this play first. Earthen Ring Farseer. Okay, and so we can Farseer my face. He's played 1 Lightning Storm, so I doubt he has another. Let's go ahead. I believe, actually... Let's Farseer... Boy, I would like to Farseer both of these guys. Farseering the Ancient Watcher is the best in this situation, I believe. Farseering my face is kind of counterintuitive with the Molten Giant. And I would not get the full heal on the Azure Drake. Although Azure Drake does have spell damage, so there's merit to that. But I feel like I need to get my health down a little bit just so that I can be able to play the Molten Giant. Okay. Well, there's my Argus. I believe I can pop down Ysera this turn. Pop down Ysera 2-1 and 3-3 into the 6-5. That means I have 4-4 in Ysera. And Ysera is amazing. And he's already used 1 Hex.
I dream.
So I have a lot of good cards in my hand right now. So Soulfire is not really looking too pretty for me right now. I can also taunt Ysera, which is a 5-13 taunt, which is... that's one thing about Ysera. She does provide a very, very big taunt. The taunt minion, if you do happen to taunt her. Though it's weak to Black Knight. So. Earthshock? Okay. You know, while that did perhaps stagnate the card advantage, that was a mistake. That was... Perhaps that's just because of the rank I'm playing on, but that was a major mistake. Should have played the Dark Iron Dwarf next turn. Okay, so... I'm thinking of Defendering of Argus, using Defender of Argus in between these two. Whoa, bit of lag there. Using Defender of Argus right here, sending the 4/4 or the 5/5 into the 4/4, and then having this 5/12 hit face. Healing Totem really does not scare me enough to get rid of it. That means I have 6 mana left, which means I have 8 cards in hand. I should taunt, or excuse me. Okay, so Sun Fury Protector is going to be used more than likely with the Molten Giant. So let's go ahead and use Defender.
My shield for Argus.
This here. Yes. I will go ahead and use the Earthen Ring Farseer onto the Ancient Watcher. And I will hit the face.
I shall bring you rest.
Again, that Healing Totem really does not scare me enough. Obviously, it would be a mistake to attack the Nerubian Egg. I don't want a 4/4. Stormforged Axe really does not accomplish much. Unless if he has something to give attack value to the Nerubian Egg. In that case, it would. We'll see. Let's check our cards. He has 15 cards left, I have 10. Okay, so he did have a second Dark Iron Dwarf. Okay. And Feral Spirits. Okay, alright. So, this is probably the best time to play Black Knight. It's obviously not the best. Something tells me at this rank he might not have Alakir. Alakir, just for those of you who don't know, he's a mana 3/5 with Taunt, Divine Shield, Charge, and Wind Fury, which is a lot of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and Black Knight.
None shall.
Okay. Then 3/3 into the 2/3. Now might be the time to Soulfire. And I have 2 Sun Furies, so I'm okay with getting rid of 1. So let's go ahead and attack 1/4/4, and let's Soulfire. Okay, so that's okay, that's alright. And finally, we Laughing Sister. Here, I will get rid of it. That is a little internally inconsistent, but I could not completely get rid of his board before. Now I can. So, that is in my favor to attack the Healing Totem. Okay, spell damage. That's a bit scary, but not really. And Leroy Jenkins has to be used. Turns out, well, that's really sad for him. And that's, yep, GG. Alright guys, so our first game was indeed a win. We played that relatively well. But I'll see you guys in the next game. Alright guys.
Versus Rexar.
Alright, so we're facing a Hunter this time around. Last game, actually, if you notice, I jumped a rank. Video footage was corrupt, so I had to go back. And we're going to play another game. It's against a Hunter again. We're going to drop all of these cards. Nothing really here we want. Azure Drakes are nice, but it's not something you want in your opening hand. Well, we've got Taunters, that's for sure. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can actually play. But we are going second, so that's nice. Hunter Tracks, okay. It's a fine opening by him. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I've actually risen. I have risen through the ranks a little bit. As of late with my Handlock and my Ramp Druid. And I'll probably end up doing a video on my Ramp Druid too. It's just missing a few legendaries. I started playing Hearthstone maybe a few months ago, and I have never spent a dime on this game. So it is totally possible to play this game and get good decks, just so long as you know how to play Arena and get the gold without spending a dime. This whole deck, I've never spent any money on the game. A lot of people, newbie handlocks, will say, "Oh, hey, look, Mountain Giants have 4 mana. I'm gonna coin it out. I'm on 3." No, because remember, if I coin it, that's one less card. It means it's gonna cost 5 mana. I've seen a lot of people do that. Unfortunately, we cannot actually tap, because if we do, we'll be left on 1 mana and we'll have 10 cards, which means we overdraw. We don't want that to happen. So unfortunately, we can't really do anything. So we're just going to pass. That's one of the things about going second. If you don't actually end up with a Twilight Drake, most of the time you can't actually play anything, which is sad. But it happens. Next turn we can Mountain Giant. Unfortunately, this opening is weak to Deadly Shot, but it happens. It happens. Mountain Giant, we're actually going to go ahead and coin Ancient Watcher. Because, if he... Well, it plays around Deadly Shot, and also, if he doesn't have an answer, such as Deadly Shot to one of these, Defender of Vargas is totally play. That is most likely Freezing Trap. Especially playing against players or classes that have secrets, it's very important to get into their mindset. What are they thinking, and why would they play a certain trap at a certain time? It takes time to realize what these traps are and what classes have which traps.
I wonder.
But hunters have Explosive Trap, Snake Trap, Freezing Trap, Misdirection. I think that's it. I believe it is. So, he would not play Explosive Trap here, as it does really nothing. However, Freezing Trap does make sense, as the Mountain Giant would be very, very mana heavy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Ironbeak Owl, I'm going to silence the Ancient Watcher, and I'm going to attack it with it. So my intuition was correct, it was Freezing Trap. So that was the best play possible. I will now Sun Fury Protector the 8/8. And we'll attack his face. The reason I did not Sun Fury the 2/1 is because the bow could hit the 2/1, and I don't want that to happen. So this 8/8 is going to be very difficult for him to deal with. Deadly Shot is a 33% chance of hitting, and that's a chance he might actually have to take. Because I don't believe he can deal with that. Or Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark is another way, and he could doggy. Unleash the Hounds would be worth it for him here. Which is sad. But it happens. So plays like that are really what comes with experience. It's just knowing exactly, what your opponent would play. What would you do? That is actually another trap that we can analyze here. He's going to hero ability and pass, I bet you. Okay, so now, okay, I've listed all the traps to you before. Freezing Trap does not make sense here. The reason being is that I could attack with my 8/1 and get it back, and even though, it is Freezing Trap and it would cost more mana, that is a waste of a Hunter's Mark.
So many
The likelihood is it's Explosive Trap, which deals 2 damage to all enemies. That means my 2/1 dies, my 8/1 dies, and I'm left with a 2/1. So, unfortunately, right now, there's no way... There's not really a way to deal with that. Tapping is a possibility. If we tap into an owl, that would be great. And I think we might actually have to do that. And then perhaps we play Ancient Watcher after we attack, if nothing happens. We could just pop down my X-Net. That is a possibility. That is, however, very weak to Deadly Shot.
So many possibilities.
So I am going to tap. So we get into a Mountain Giant. Okay, so I'm okay with this. We're going to attack with the Actually going to attack with a 2-1 first. Yes. And it's explosive trap. Okay.
I got it.
So that happens. We pop down Mountain Giant, and this is also weak to deadly, but this was better. So we're playing very wisely, and so the play is Deadly Shock, unfortunately, which sucks. Or Loatheb. Interesting. That is another freezing trap. Wow. Okay. So. Look at how many spells. Look at how many cards we have in our hand that are just destroyed in terms of mana. That is freezing trap. There's no
So many
possibility that it's explosive trap. So we are getting very low on life, so tapping is becoming less and less viable. However, we can just Defender of Argus, which I think we might end up doing. So I am going to tap. This is a very ballsy tap, but I will do it. Okay, let's Argus. Argus
My
and
shield for
pass.
Argus.
Okay, that's what we're going to do. The likelihood of that being anything else but freezing trap is very low. Now this, I mean, we can't really make too much, optimal plays. Loatheb, if he didn't have his battle cry, we would just Siphon Soul it. It's unfortunate. Soulfire really doesn't do anything in that situation either. So there are ways that he can deal with this, and we're hoping that he doesn't have the ways. Starving Buzz and Unleash the Hounds is a possibility. Alright, I'm
My
with that.
side.
Okay, gets Misha. Let's hope he did not draw Unleash the Hounds. If he did, that would not be very good. Although we do have Hellfire, which is nice.
I moves quickly.
Okay, another animal.
My side.
Leok. He's going to be able to kill that. Interesting. Wow, he's actually down to 9 damage. I believe we have lethal. Yeah, we do. We have lethal. Woo-wee! Okay. I just want to make sure. You can't be... So we can double Hellfire. Right? And that'll... I just want to make sure, okay? Alright, so we Hellfire. We Hellfire. Soulfire. Woo-wee! Well, that was quite the explosive game, but we did it, ladies and gents. Oh, I wanted to well play. Anyway, whew, a turbulent second game. So I hope you guys actually enjoyed watching me play Handlock. That was quite the close game at the end there. We played very well. We played very wisely. So that was a very good game. But thank you guys so much for watching. I definitely will be uploading more stuff soon. A lot of stuff coming your way with Counter-Strike. And also maybe some WoW could be in the future. More Hearthstone stuff. But if you like this video, make sure to leave it a like. Any comments that you make that are constructive criticism, I totally take. And if you honestly did not like the video, dislike it, because I want to know what you guys think and what I should do and what I should not do. So subscribe if you did like it and you would like to see more. But all said and done, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.